The snow didn't scream when it swallowed her. It only sighed, soft and endless, as if the mountain itself was trying to forget what had happened there. By the time the storm finally loosened its grip, the woman beneath the white silence had been gone long enough that hope itself felt frozen. And yet, on that gray morning, a retired veteran and his loyal dog stepped into the wilderness, unaware that their quiet walk would uncover a truth so shocking it would ripple far beyond the trees. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen bonds that still hold this world together, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only live on if people choose to carry them forward. David Mercer had learned how to live with silence. After 30 years in the military, silence was both his comfort and his curse. The kind that followed you home from war zones, settled into your bones, and stayed even when the house was warm and the kettle was whistling. Retirement hadn't brought peace the way people promised. It had brought memories with too much time to breathe. That was why he walked the forest trails every morning before dawn, letting the crunch of snow under his boots and the steady rhythm of his breath keep the past at a distance. At his side was Rex, a Belgian Malinois with a graying muzzle and eyes that missed nothing. Rex had once been a working dog, trained for search and rescue, trained to listen for heartbeats beneath rubble and screams beneath chaos. Age had slowed him, but instinct never truly retired. The storm the night before had been brutal, the kind that erased paths and swallowed landmarks. David had almost stayed home, but something tugged at him, a familiar unease he'd learned to trust long ago. The forest was eerily quiet that morning, branches heavy with snow, the sky low and colorless. Rex moved ahead, nose low, tail stiff, his body language shifting from casual to alert in a way David recognized instantly. Years of shared experience snapped back into focus. This wasn't curiosity. This was purpose. They followed a shallow drift off the main trail, the snow deeper there, untouched and deceptively smooth. That was when Rex stopped abruptly and began pawing at the ground, whining in a low, urgent tone that cut through the cold. David's heart thudded as he knelt, brushing away snow with gloved hands. At first, all he saw was ice and white. Then a patch of dark hair. Then skin, pale and rimmed with frost. And then he saw the tape. The woman's face was partially exposed, her mouth sealed with silver duct tape, her eyes half open, lashes crusted with ice. For a split second, David's mind refused to accept it. This wasn't a fallen hiker or someone lost in a storm. This was deliberate. Controlled. Violent. Training kicked in before emotion could. He checked for breathing, pulse faint but there, so fragile it felt like it might disappear if he hesitated. Rex pressed close, body tense, breath fogging the air as if he understood the gravity of what lay before them. David worked quickly, digging her out enough to free her chest and arms, tearing off his jacket to wrap around her. His fingers shook, not from the cold, but from the familiar surge of adrenaline he thought he'd left behind with his uniform. He had seen this before, in different forms, in different countries, where cruelty hid behind silence and snow or sand made perfect cover. He called emergency services with hands that felt too large for the phone, voice steady only because discipline demanded it. As they waited, David studied her more closely. She wore a police uniform beneath the snow, the badge half buried but unmistakable. Her nameplate read, E. Collins. A female cop. Young. The kind of person who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Her wrists were raw, evidence of restraints recently removed or broken. Whoever had done this had assumed the cold would finish the job. Sirens eventually broke the stillness, blue and red lights flashing against the white forest like wounds in the landscape. Paramedics rushed in, lifting her onto a stretcher, oxygen mask fogging as she drew shallow breaths. David stepped back then, suddenly aware of the ache in his knees and the weight of what he had just pulled back from the edge. Rex sat at his side, eyes locked on the woman until she was carried away, tail low, ears back. The news spread fast. A missing officer found alive after nearly 24 hours buried in snow was the kind of story that grabbed headlines. But as details emerged, the shock deepened. Officer Emily Collins had been investigating a human trafficking ring operating through remote mountain routes. She had gone undercover, alone, against protocol, following a lead she believed was time-sensitive. She'd been discovered, abducted, interrogated, and left for dead when the storm rolled in. Her captor's confident nature would erase their mistake. Emily survived, but survival came at a cost. Frostbite threatened her fingers. Hypothermia lingered in her muscles and mind. When she woke in the hospital, confusion and fear flooded back before memory did. Faces leaned over her, voices explaining, reassuring. And then there was the dog. Rex had been brought in briefly, allowed to sit at the foot of her bed as a comfort measure. Emily's eyes filled with tears when she saw him, not fully understanding why, only knowing that something about his presence meant safety. David stood back, awkward, unsure where he fit in this new chapter he'd accidentally stepped into. Recovery was slow. Physical therapy tested Emily's strength and patience. Nightmares tested her resolve. The knowledge that her investigation had exposed something bigger, darker, than she'd anticipated weighed heavily on her. But the evidence she'd hidden before going undercover, combined with what she'd managed to remember, began to unravel the trafficking ring piece by piece. Arrests followed. Names surfaced. Routes were shut down. Other lives were saved because one woman had refused to turn away, and one dog had refused to ignore what lay beneath the snow. David tried to fade back into his quiet routines, but the world had other plans. Media outlets wanted interviews. People called him a hero. He didn't feel like one. He felt like someone who had simply listened when instinct spoke. Still, something had shifted inside him. The silence that once pressed in now felt different, less heavy. He began volunteering again, this time with local search and rescue teams, sharing his experience, letting Rex work within his limits, teaching younger handlers the importance of patience and trust. Emily reached out months later. Her recovery had progressed enough that she could walk the same forest trail where she'd nearly died. They met there, not as rescuer and victim, but as two people bound by a moment neither could forget. The snow was gone, replaced by damp earth and new growth. She thanked him, not with dramatic words, but with quiet sincerity. She thanked Rex too, kneeling carefully to rest her forehead against his, tears slipping free without shame. What shocked everyone most wasn't just that she survived, or that the case was cracked wide open. It was what came after. Emily returned to duty, but with a new mission focused on prevention and support for victims rather than pursuit alone. David found purpose again, not in uniform, but in service. Rex, old but proud, became a symbol in the community, a reminder that loyalty doesn't fade with age. The forest returned to its rhythms, storms came and went, and snow fell again the following winter. But beneath that snow now lived a story people told their children, a story about paying attention, about the thin line between loss and rescue, about how even in the coldest moments, compassion can still dig someone out. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that hope can survive even when buried, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. And before this video ends, we have a special request for you. Leave a comment sharing what this story made you feel, or a moment when kindness changed the course of someone's life. Because sometimes, the most powerful rescues don't happen with sirens or applause. Sometimes they happen in silence, with a man, a dog, and the courage to stop and look beneath the snow.